Why did God make the world out of such an imperfect material? Why did he use matter to create the world? Well, according to the Gnostic myth, he didn't. They imagined the creation of the world in a very different way. Here's how they saw it. In the beginning, there was a perfect divinity called the monad. This is the one God of the universe and the source of everything. The monad then starts emanating other divine beings in pairs called dyads. And with permission from the monad, each of these pairs then creates more divine beings. And soon there's a whole spiritual realm called the pleroma, which literally means fullness. One of these beings is Sophia, and she decides to create a being on her own, but she doesn't get permission from the monad. But in doing this, she makes a terrible mistake. She creates an ignorant and malformed creature known as the demiurge. She's ashamed of what she's done, and so she falls out of the pleroma, taking the demiurge with her, and hides him in a separate reality. The demiurge has no idea that there's another divine world. He looks around and sees that there's no other gods, and so he assumes that he must be the only god in the universe. Demiurge means craftsman or artisan, and so he starts building the material world as we know it. And then he takes Sophia and splits her into billions of tiny pieces and puts each of these fragments of the divine into human beings. And so each of us is really a divine spark that's been sealed inside a material body. But the demiurge doesn't do this alone. He creates lower beings to help him, the archons. These are his agents, and they become the rulers of the material world. And because they have no divinity of their own, they feed off the divine sparks of humanity, creating a system of control. Sealed inside this world, our sparks have fallen asleep. We've forgotten our divine origin. And most of us don't realize that the soul is the only thing that's real and enduring, that our bodies are temporary. And as long as we can't remember who we are, we stay in the material world. Which means that for the Gnostics, it wasn't God who made the world out of matter. It was the demiurge. And it's the demiurge who put Adam and Eve in the garden. And the reason he doesn't want them to eat from the tree of knowledge is to keep them ignorant of the truth. But there is a way out. The monad sends a divine being into the material world to help set us free. This being is Christ, and his true teaching is to show us how to free ourselves, to transcend the physical suffering of this world, and to awaken the spark within. This is gnosis. And so according to the Gnostic point of view, salvation isn't found by believing in a set of doctrines or following a church authority. It's found through gnosis, the direct revelation of divine experience, which means that anyone at any time can access it. And you do it by bringing forth what is within you. That's the source of your real power, because the kingdom of God is within you. Now, these are very controversial ideas, I know, but this is what the Gnostics believed. It's the Gnostic story, and it's the symbolic myth we find in so many films today. We see all the same elements: the demiurge, the powerful figure who's trying to control humanity and keep us ignorant of the truth. We see the false world he's built that turns out to be an illusion designed to keep us trapped here. And we see a Gnostic Christ figure who comes into the world to set us free and to help restore our connection to the divine. So why is this same myth being told over and over again in so many different movies? And why does it seem to resonate so much with people? Psychologists tell us that we all have a storytelling mind. We naturally tell stories about ourselves to explain who we are, why we do the things we do, and where we're going in the future. Dan McAdams calls it narrative identity. And whether you know it or not, you're living out some form of story. Some people are living out the story of the tragic hero, or the misunderstood rebel, or the wounded healer. But let me ask you a question. If we imagine that our society itself is living out a kind of story, what would it be? Well, let's look at the architects of our world. Oligarchs, corporations, big tech, and government. They're all trying to shape the world in their image. And whether it's through the media, technology, the monetary system, or military conflict, they see themselves as the gods of the modern world. And so whether they know it or not, they're acting out the story of the demiurge. Because symbolically, the demiurge is really a way of looking at the world. It's a mechanistic worldview that sees people not as free autonomous beings with their own value and dignity, but as cogs in a machine, as resources to be extracted, replaceable parts in a much larger system of control. These forces have never been more powerful than they are today, and yet no amount of power ever seems to be enough.